All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting edition of Two Men in Black and White, an honest conversation. We're back with more fuckery. It's the only way I can explain it with the Trump administration. We got some would call her a drunk, some would call her just a crazy ideologue, but Jeanine Pirro stepping in for Ed Martin as Attorney General of Washington, D.C. And there's one goal here for this position. That's for someone to go after anyone who prosecuted anything related to Trump 1.0. So we're talking about January 6th. We're talking about any of the investigations. We're talking about Jack Smith. We're talking about people upholding the rule of law. And the Trumpster is trying to find somebody who will continue his retribution tour, which is absolutely ridiculous. That helps none of the people. And we, the people, are sick of it. My partner in crime, Brock Ganeles, joins us today with a look at what's happening outside. And Brock, it finally stopped raining, man. But, while it was raining, they were telling us it was rain, but it was really piss. And it's just a joke. They are taking the levers of government and turning it into their own personal, playpen. And, none of their, see, you can't say I like his policies. You like the fact that he's grifting a $400 million jet. You like the fact that he's sending innocent men and women to gulags all over the world. Who knows where they're going next? Who knows what prison is like in Libya? It's a joke. Don't tell me you like his policies. Just tell me you're a flat out racist, and that's why you roll with him. What's got you pissed off today?
Well, look, the Congress is going to push through this budget, right? It's happening, right? Because I can see, I'm getting all the emails, all the call your congressman, call your senator. I'm going to call Pat Ryan and Gillibrand, and I'm call Schumer. I'm calling Chuck Schumer. My take is always like, if they don't know where they need to be on these issues, then why am I going to bother calling them, right? Because they're all Democrats. But second of all, where are they? Right? Where are they in the argument, right? They're just, it's business as usual versus the 5-alarm fire mentality. And, the only thing I would get down to is we just have the wrong, just the wrong people, right? I agree with on the policies. I know they're going to vote, but they don't move the needle on public sentiment in any way. And that's really the only role of a Democratic politician right now, is what they can do relative to sentiment. And if you don't have someone who's making noise and making good arguments and breaking through, then they're really adding no value right now.
So let me ask you this. Do you think slashing Medicaid, giving billionaires a huge tax cut so they don't have to, pay as much as a teacher making 50 grand, in the Northeast, where how do you live on that unless you've got a partner that's doing really well? Is this budget the so-called last straw to get people motivated in the streets to tear shit up, to remove this regime?
You would think so. Apparently, there's a crowd of people in the halls of Congress, getting kind of rowdy. But it was a small crowd, and it was only people really paying close attention to what's going on. You would think, right? They say budgets are where you see where your values are. Your budget reflects your values. So this budget's reflecting the values of America, right? Where, we need to funnel more to the top, and we need to punish and take more from those that have the least because they deserve even less. And we're the meritocracy country, so we need to just flow more to the top and who happen to all be white. And we're going to provide less to those takers who are down there on the bottom, very often people of color who've always been disadvantaged economically. Okay, so that's now the value system of America. Okay, I guess, do we agree with that? That's the president America voted for, assuming it was, quasi-fair. But even if it wasn't, it would have been somewhat close. So, I don't know, now this budget gets to the Senate. When does the anger boil over? not
Right.
until after it's enacted. It seems like no one reacts until it hits them personally. So we'll
Right.
have to wait till it hits more and more people.
Right. Because I mean, Republicans have the numbers, right? And there's no reason, there's been no suggestion that any of them are going to go against the president's wishes, and help the oligarchs achieve more. I mean, how many yachts can you water ski behind? Like, how much more money do these clowns actually need? And that to me is, the biggest issue. Like, nobody is coming out and saying, speaking of the messaging that we're talking about, where is the multiracial, multicultural coalition, right, to create a stronger, fairer, more just America?
Hey,
We don't have
where's
any
the
of that,
hey,
man.
where's the this is un-American message. This is
Oh,
not the
that too.
America. This is not the America that we want, right? We as Americans, we're not going to push through a budget that gives more to the people that have the most and takes from everybody else. Like, we're about giving people a fair opportunity for a good life and success. And therefore, we're not going to take the money out of public schools and give them to private schools so that the many suffer, so that the few can thrive. That's not how America functions. We're not going to have a tax code that gives more to the wealthiest and harms everybody else along the way. This is not who we are. This is un-American. We elect leaders that are supposed to serve the public good, not those that are looking to enrich themselves along the way. I mean,
Right.
Mike Johnson's out saying that the Qatar airplane, that's not his lane to comment on. Oh, but on the other hand, he is sympathetic to Congress people that trade stocks because, it's okay if they front run the news and make money off of being politicians and cheating the system because, hey, they have to feed their families also. Like, this toxic selfishness mentality that's intertwined with racism, it's just un-American. Where the fuck is that message?
Yep.
Listen to Pete Buttigieg for an hour and 10 minutes. I listened. You gave me a homework assignment. Find a white leader who's got a message that resonates with you. And Pete Buttigieg said a ton of smart things and a lot of stuff that I agreed with. But he's not bringing the fire of the moment, which got me to thinking that the politicians are anyone who's angling for 2028 presidential election, like, they can't lead the movement as it stands now, because the movement and the messaging probably has to come from someone who isn't thinking about their aspirations down the road, certainly not presidential aspirations. And anyone who is willing to say things controversial, like an AOC, it's why she's a unicorn, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's young, you would think she would be thinking, what's the most politically savvy thing to say in any moment in time? And yet she says what she believes and becomes the number one targeted Democrat by the right, which, will probably destroy her presidential aspirations.
Yeah.
But she's willing to do it at a young age. Her and Bernie. Bernie, I get. Bernie's 80 years old. Whatever. He's on his last legs. He can fire from the hip.
So, and thinking of that, on the opposite side of the aisle, you've got Jasmine Crockett, who is much the same kind of firebrand, right? But as an African American woman, which happens to be the least respected demographic in our society for whatever reason, we already know they're the most educated person in our demographic here in our country, more college degrees and graduate degrees than you can shake a stick at. So I love Jasmine, right? I think she's perfect for the movement because she takes no shorts. She tells you like it is. And you know what? She's super smart and understands how government works, right? She can give us smart solutions to dealing with these kingmakers, right? Now, the person that you're talking about who could also lead a movement, you mentioned to me earlier a rock star, pop superstar. LeBron James. He checks the boxes. He does.
LeBron checks a lot of boxes. Okay, well, if we're going to make this segue, let's make this segue, because this is the home assignment to me, was to find a leader of the movement. And it got me to thinking that the leader of the movement today isn't necessarily need to be the leader of the quote Democratic Party and or a politician who's angling for their next job up the ladder of politics. And I've already said, I don't begrudge anyone in politics wanting a next and better job. It's like anybody in any career, right? You always want a next and better job. So I do believe that the leader of the movement for today, and the movement being the opposition to Project 2025, MAGA white supremacy, Trump 2.0, right? Fighting this fight now, which I think is more important. There is no 2028 election. So I would argue everyone should be focused on today, but I get why some people still have an eye on tomorrow and haven't really, in my mind, caught up to how dire a situation we're in. So I'm with you. I do think the leader of the movement or the leaders of this movement are likely to come either from shoot from the hip politicians like AOC and Jasmine. It turns out it only happens to be people of color willing to do that. Right. And or people coming from another lane, another vocation, who happen to be great at what they do, great communicators, and are willing to step away from what they're doing today to say, you know what, I am going to rally the people because Trump 2.0 is a threat to America, and America is more important to me now than anything else.
Absolutely.
And so LeBron James would definitely be in that camp, although you asked me to find a white person. Mm-hmm. And LeBron doesn't count for that because, doesn't fit that bill. Because between Michelle Obama and Oprah and LeBron, you have some candidates of people of color that could, lead a movement really quickly, man, move the needle and get the notoriety. They would just lose the luster of their adulation. Right. Like, that's what somebody's going to risk, because as soon as they step into this role, half the country's going to want them dead, right? And they're going to become public enemy number one for MAGA world. And so they're going to take a lot of shots, and it's going to be an unhappy life that they're living. Probably like Martin Luther King lived an unhappy life, right? Everyone hated him and wanted him dead till somebody finally shot him, right? Right. So a lot of, it's a shitty role.
Yes.
But somebody's got to take it.
And, the problem is getting people to understand, that half the country subscribes to this movement, right? But it's a movement that is not rooted in fact. It's not rooted in justice for all. It's not rooted in any of the things we believe in that are written in that little document called the Constitution. Or that special little document that's very lovely, the Declaration of Independence. It has nothing to do with the core values of this country, right? When we talk about a fairer, more just America, that's not what half the country is saying they want. So in my estimation, if I'm Oprah, if I'm the Obamas, I'll take the other 160, 170 million and say, okay, I'm good with this half of the country. I can still go most of the places I want to go. Yeah. I can afford a bodyguard, and I've got more money than I know what to do with anyway. So we're good. I just think it requires the sacrifice, right? Like Dr. King made, because we are at that watershed moment in history. And I don't know why, everyone hasn't broken the glass in their own home.
Yeah. I don't understand the watershed moment. So the people that I've thought of, like, that could be like, these are some names that came up when we had this conversation 2 months ago, right? So it hasn't changed too much over the 2-month period, but I think it's worth revisiting because we still don't have real leadership in the movement, right? So, I think Springsteen is a candidate because, first of all, he sings about the Midwest. He is the working class. He's the Bernie Sanders, like his music, his ethos is what Bernie Sanders pitches as a politician, right? So Bruce Springsteen is, like, in essence, he's a left-wing thinker, but he comes from, like, he's like what Tim Walz is, sort of. Like, he comes from Jersey, but he's almost like a Midwestern Rust Belt personality,
For sure. For sure.
So, but with the message of America, in fact, he was out criticizing Trump just yesterday, right? And he's willing to be critical and controversial. He's just in my mind too old at this point, right? 20 years ago, Bruce Springsteen would have been sweet spot, and maybe he just put his guitar down and he'd be used to be in front of huge crowds.
Right.
But whatever, he could sing a few songs and then rally the crowd, right? So a Springsteen type. I would love to see Taylor Swift get politically involved. Literally say, I'm not writing an album this year. I am focused, and really just go after white women and just say, hey, white women, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah. Why are we letting these white supremacists, misogynists, and she could take it even from the, gender angle and be like, why the fuck are we allowing this to go on? This is not the country we want to be living in. And stop voting with your husbands or single young white women. Hey, this is not the party you want to be, aligned with. Not the country you want to have. The other person I've been thinking about is John, and who I think is potentially might even be thinking this himself, is a Jon Stewart.
Good.
All right, made us laugh for 20, 30 years. He's not ultra left. He's very critical. I mean, I got pissed at him for ripping on Biden. And during the president, before Biden dropped out, I was like, Stewart, come on. We can't afford that right now. We can't afford to chip away at Biden, right? Trump's the enemy. Right. But Jon Stewart's really great at delivering the message. And we know he gets passionate about issues the way he's fought for the 9/11, survivors for 2 decades now. And so he's already had a toe in the political realm. Right. He stepped back into his show because of the politics. But is that the forum that, he could drop that show in a heartbeat and say, I'm going to lead this movement. Right. The show's not enough for me right now. Once again, a white guy, New York white guy, maybe New York Jewish white guy, but I think a Jon Stewart type. He's an entertainer, right? He can get, he's used to talking to people.
Yep. Smart and savvy, right? And can go toe to toe with the MAGA crowd, right? He's not afraid of them standing. A comedian, with the microphone, he always wins. Let me throw another name out.
I've thought of Colbert also. I'm just talking about someone who's going to say, I'm quitting my current job and I am going to be a leader of the anti-Trump movement. And I'm going to go around and do town halls. And I'm going to lead marches. And I'm going to spend all my time now figuring out how to rally America to impeach, convict, and remove Donald Trump. My show is canceled. I'll do that again later in life, or I've done it enough.
Right.
Conan O'Brien. But to me, Stewart's a little more fiery than Colbert.
And he's already been in it.
And he's already been in it.
Yeah. Let me throw another name out at you, who was the target of an attempted assassination attempt just recently when she had 2.5 million people show up for her concert down in South America, Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga has always been willing to share her opinions. I think she could really, because she has that ability to, cross into the older demographic, and she's very in touch with young people. And she's a style maker, right? She understands what the moment is. See, that's where Merrick Garland got a lot of criticism, right? He wasn't ready for the moment. The moment was too big for him, right? The people we are talking about, LeBron, Jon Stewart, Colbert, they understand what it is to be under the spotlight, right? The moment is never going to get too big for them. The spotlight is never going to be too bright for Lady Gaga, right? To stand up and say what's right with America, right? And why we need change now, right? Brock, she did that in a foreign country. 2.5 million people to show up, and people were so pissed about it, they wanted to blow her up with bombs. Unfortunately, authorities in Rio, I believe, were able to foil the plot.
If she'd have this, she definitely has, I don't know if she'd have the stamina for it. She always has health issues.
Yeah.
But she's definitely willing to speak her mind at any point in time and doesn't care about the criticism. She's already had 20 years of criticism.
Right.
Right. So she's already, maybe even past it in life of worrying about that shit anymore, you'd hope. A great candidate, if he wasn't MAGA, would be Tom Brady. If there was a Tom Brady who actually had a different political view, because he'd come, like you said, come with the reverence, but then actually, would be willing to throw it away because you get, you're throwing away your adulation once you step into this ring. And I'm just looking for who's willing to throw away their adulation and take their skill set and bring it to this fight. Because in the end, if they win the fight, they will be one of the greatest Americans ever. Of all time. So from that angle, right, it's definitely worth going for if your heart's there. But your heart's got to be there and you got to be willing, because it's going to have to be, it should be an everyday job, right? There should be someone who's barnstorming the country like as if they were doing a concert around the U.S. In every city, every night, there should be an event with different guests, local guests, but someone who's the leader of the band.
Yep.
And can just keep bringing people out and bringing them out. And it just happens over and over. And it's soaking up the spotlight also. It's pulling the shine from Trump. It's laughing at him too. That's why I like a comedian, right? Because the way to poke fun at a fascist, at a despot, is to make fun of them, right? They hate being made fun of. So just there needs to be a leader of the band like that. We just laid out white people, but it doesn't have to be a white person, but it's best not to be a politician, because the politician has to go and do the job, right?
Yeah.
They have to go to DC. They have to go vote. They have to deal with their constituents. It could be someone else, like John Legend might want to do it. Right. He's not super dynamic. Obviously, he's a great artist, right? But from a personality point of view, he's a little on the soft-spoken side,
right.
But he definitely, he's there and he's willing to step in the political realm.
Yeah, hasn't been shy about his political views. Now, let me take you back to that iconic photo of the press conference with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Jim Brown, Muhammad Ali, and a couple of other iconic sports figures from the 60s who came together, did the press conference, and talked about the need for change in America for the Black Americans. At that time, they called them the Negroes, right? And when you look back, they were all willing to risk it, right? Muhammad Ali, right?
Went to jail.
Yeah, refused to go into the military, right? That kind of sacrifice. Lou Alcindor changed his name to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar because of what he thought was important at the time and the way he thought it was going to bring about change. Jim Brown was never shy in his political opinions, his political goals in terms of creating a more fair, more just, more diverse, more inclusive America. And then they were all willing to make the sacrifice, and every single one of them ended up, when it's all said and done, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is still here with us, but Jim Brown became one of our most revered figures, and most people had never seen Jim Brown play. Some of his biggest fans, right, because of his willingness to take a stance in the political realm. And that's what we need. We need that iconic photo from the white side and the brown side, right? We could use it from the Hispanic side and the Asian side.
Yeah.
Right? We could use it on the Latino side. We can use it from every community out here, the biggest names calling for the biggest amount of change, because that will overwhelm MAGA. They won't know what to do, right? When every major name from these political parties, from these different ethnicities, from these different cultures, band together and say, nah, this is not the America we want. And then you couple that with a Lady Gaga or a Jon Stewart or a Colbert, right? And now look what we've got. The multiracial, multicultural coalition, right?
And
more just and more fair.
Yeah, Taylor Swift at that table. Look, hey, if Caitlin Clark and Steph Curry and Patrick Mahomes, I'm thinking of the biggest of the big, right? And Cooper Flagg,
Right.
Get some young, sprinkle another white guy in there. And LeBron, right, sat down, had a press conference and talked about athletes for, change in America. It would be a punch in the face to Trump, right? He would lash out at all of them. He would try to ruin all their careers, right? But then a little bit of strength in numbers. And I mean, we need all this stuff, right? And that it takes a courage that's so beyond what anyone's done in our lifetime, Mark.
Right.
The most courage, the most I've seen in my lifetime is Colin Kaepernick. Like, to me, he was my vision of the civil rights leader of my lifetime. I'm a huge Colin Kaepernick guy. And he lost his career, right? We watched America allow Donald Trump and MAGA world and the racist NFL, right? Which is all intertwined, right? To ruin his career. Now, people could argue he'd hurt his shoulder. He didn't have the same arm strength that he had younger in his career, blah, 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 right? There's always a fucking argument on everything. But that was political courage. Right. That is just, you don't see very often. And we don't have it right now. Like, we can't name a person that's who goes up against non-political? Because, of course, we go back to AOC and Jasmine Crockett and maybe Bernie. Name me a non-political figure that we would view as going up against Trump. Right. Head to head. Yeah. Is it who's doing that? There's people making jokes. Right. But who's literally just going at him, calling him un-American, calling him a racist, saying that he's tearing down America, calling for his impeachment every day, saying that he's, corrupt, and, painting him as anti-American and an enemy, and he's the enemy of the people. Who's out doing that? Nobody. Nobody's out doing that. And my question is why isn't everybody doing that all the time, every day? Is it because different individuals are worried about their individual ramifications and they don't see the strength in numbers? Right. Which has been my criticism of the marches that we've had so far. They've been nice. They've been, they've had participation. Everyone gets a trophy. But they've been missing the speech at the beginning that gives it its messaging and its fire and the goal. Why are we out here? Right. Next time I go to one of these, which June 14th in DC, the question will be, why are you out here? Oh, I want to show America that I disagree with Trump's policies, or I want to show Donald Trump that I disagree, or I want to send a message to my congressman. Is that the end goal of why people are out there protesting? Yeah, can't be. Can't be, right? It sounds so soft. Even as I say the words, I'm what are we wasting our fucking time for, right? Go play golf. No one's getting to the end game and saying the big thing, which is we got to remove this fucking guy. This is it. We're going to fascism. We can't be letting them just cart fucking a bunch of Latinos into vans and ship them out. We can't let them take all the money away from people's health care so that we're just going to have people dying on the streets. We're who's willing to say that? I like that politics girl. I'm going to reach out to her. She might not have enough following, but she's willing to say what's on her fucking mind. And I'm just, I know you want the athletes to do it. I want the entertainers to do it. And we want more politicians to do it. I tried to come up with some white people for you. I hope I threw a few out there. I don't know if that's what they think about. Taylor Swift did go after Marsha Blackburn. She lost, but she was vocal about going against Marsha Blackburn in Tennessee, which is her home turf. She wanted to go that next step and say, whoa, Donald Trump is destroying America. Hey, my following, this is terrible what's going on. Hey, pay attention, young people. Yeah. Who's our Greta Thunberg? Yeah. Is it David Hogg? Now they might even be trying to get him out of his seat. Could have been Evan Gonzalez. Could have been Evan Gonzalez. I'd still love to get her out of retirement. Yeah. But who's our person getting up, a young person getting up and saying, this is fucking ridiculous? Yeah. Right? Yeah. We don't have a Malala. We don't have a Greta Thunberg, you know? And I keep hearing about how, I know we're running a little longer tonight, keep hearing about how disaffected 18 to 25-year-old white males are, right? Like, right, they're falling behind, or, you know, like they you know they can slip into they like some of Trump's antics, and Tate brothers and all these other fuckers that they supposedly listen to online and this and that, because they don't feel a purpose or connection, or whatever technology is, you know, taking away their community. I don't know the issues of why we have a disaffected 18 to 25-year-old, but couldn't like a few of them get on a mission of saying, hey, we got to take this fucking country over?
Right.
No one's talking about climate change. Meanwhile, these fuckers are, you know, destroying our planet. And second of all, they're taking away our opportunity and our rights. They're killing us with debt. They're creating an economy that we can barely live in. Like, what's going on here? Like, we gotta like band together. And like, wasn't the 60s, 70s those young people that really led movements? Like, yes. What are we gonna have? We're gonna have a movement led by a bunch of 78-year-olds fighting for their Social Security? Come on. That's not a winning hand. It's not a winning hand.
The young kids now that are in a position, right, to lead a movement are making so much money. You're gonna have a tough time trying to talk them into making that kind of sacrifice. That's the issue, right? Because it gets back to a different kind of selfishness. It may not be toxic, but it's still about me, the team of me, as Roscoe Jenkins would say. You can't ask these young people to set aside their millions and millions of dollars. Kai Cenat, have you heard of this guy? This guy gets mobbed in airports because of his live streams. I didn't even know what this guy did. I had to get, you know, one of my young people in my family to explain to me who this guy is, and he's a streamer. And people pay to sit and watch him do video games. And he's got millions and millions of followers and makes millions and millions per month. That's the kind of guy who could move the needle, who could say to his fans and his followers, hey, follow me. I'm going to DC this week because I don't like what's happening in America. But who's going to convince him to give up, you know, $3, $4, $5 million a month?
Well, he would have to tell his followers, like, you're getting screwed. Like, right. Wake the fuck up. Like, right. You're getting screwed. Right. And you can do something about it. Like, but you're getting screwed. Your debt is huge. Like, the job opportunities are terrible. They've just gotten worse. Like, your choice is being taken away in terms of even when you have or start a family, which is going to affect the economics of your entire life as well. Like, you're not like growing into the America the rest of us had. Right. And you guys got to wake the fuck up. So if that's who they're listening to, we need someone like that to send that message along. I'm just worried it's really not going to come from a white person. So Mark, I know. I just feel like the ball is going to get thrown back into the court of people of color, and it's going to have to be someone dynamic that can also cross over and shake up at least a portion of white America. You know, because there's some of white America that's pretty much lost, but we don't have to worry about them. Right.
No, if we can get everybody on the brown side in lockstep, you know, we get a portion of well-meaning, well-intentioned white America.
Well, Taylor Swift can get like 18 to 45-year-old white women, right? She runs that gamut. Like between her and Lady Gaga, you know, maybe we get even up to like 50-year-olds plus.
Right. And the LGBTQ community, like we should own that. We should own that. And Lady Gaga can bring all of them. She just bought $2.5 million to a beach.
Yeah, in Brazil.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? Like, this is not hard, right? We just need somebody to approach these people and say, hey, this is why we need you. This is your calling. This is it. You've got what we need, and that is the ear of the people.
Who's going to get 2 million people to DC on June 14th?
That's my question. LeBron could do it. They'd tell him to shut up and play basketball, but LeBron could do it, you know. Lady Gaga could do it. Jon Stewart could do it, you know.
Could Mark Milley do it and say, we're shutting down this military parade? I'm not allowing the military parade. I'm standing in the middle of the street. Come stand behind me.
Absolutely.
Come stand behind me. Every right. I'm
Absolutely.
standing in the middle of the street. If they shoot me down, somebody step up, next man up. Maybe he's not a big enough name, but I'm just thinking because of the military parade and
But
the
if he took the
military
vets,
aspect, that if someone from a military background and he's maybe the highest profile,
yeah,
in the country.
yeah. So if he took the vets with him, he could definitely get a crowd behind him. So let's explore that avenue.
We're
Who
throwing.
can put two men
I
in
feel
the
like we're.
street?
I still feel like we're in the throwing shit at the wall.
Oh,
What is it?
no.
Throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping it sticks stage of
Right.
this opposition, while Project 2025 takes another step
Yeah.
forward
Yeah.
today, right? With the the big quote beautiful bill like working its way through Congress
Joke.
without which does not appear to be any prospect of any Republican voting against it,
All
which
right.
means it lands on Trump's desk. So like I don't see what's going to derail this massive policy implementation
And what, 98% of us won't benefit from anything in
from
this
any
bill?
of it.
Sam. Awesome. All right, my friend. That's going to be the last word for today. We're going to check in tomorrow. Keep taking the temperature of America and see where we are.
Okay. All right, Mark. Always a pleasure. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Peace.
All right.